Good morning. Not on my prayer trail this morning. I am walking the road and I'm over by the river on the edge of a cornfield. And I keep a neat little rubber strap, um, real short bungee strap, with me when I go walking sometimes to fasten my phone on something if I need to. And I felt I should take that with me today. So I'm going to share something that God's been talking to me about. Actually, I've thought on this passage a lot over the years and preached on this passage a lot. But this morning it came to me powerfully, and I just felt that I should go and make a video and that I should walk the road and the Lord would provide a spot. And so here's the spot. In James chapter 5, James chapter 5, and I got my old pad with me here with a couple of notes from this morning. Verses 16 and 17 are some powerful, powerful verses. The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. The one translation says the prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. The prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. Then it goes on to say Elijah was a man, and I love Elijah. Elijah was a man of like passions, like us. He's human just like us. And he prayed that it wouldn't rain for 3.5 years. And then he prayed again, it would rain. So that verse, that passage, James 5, 16 and 17, the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. The prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. And then James, through the Holy Spirit, pulls in Elijah and says that he was just like us. He was human just like us. Had the same passions, the type of, the makeup that we have, put together like we are. You know, he wasn't some divine creature from heaven. The Spirit of God was on him, and that's the key. But he prayed that it wouldn't rain for 3.5 years, and it didn't. And then he prayed again that it would rain, and it did. And I got to just take a second here. I find an interesting hint in this. I personally believe that Elijah is one of the two witnesses in Revelation that are operating in the second half of the tribulation period. Half of 7 years is 3.5. And many feel that the two witnesses are possibly Elijah and Moses. But it's interesting that here it says he prayed that it wouldn't rain, and it didn't for 3.5 years. The great tribulation hour. I believe there's a little hint here. The second half of tribulation is 3.5 years. So we'll just leave that lay. But I can't pass that up with all that's happening in our world and the signs of the coming of Christ and the coming tribulation. That's a wonderful wonderful hope of heaven and rapture and the return of Jesus. And probably be sharing more about that in later messages because there's so much going on. But back on track. Remnant, are you listening? The prayer of a righteous man, the prayer of a righteous woman is powerful and effective. Effective. It matters when you pray. Don't quit. It matters when you pray. Don't stop. Keep praying for your kids. Keep praying for your neighbors. Keep praying for the workplace. One man in God is a majority. One man in God is a majority. And I believe many of you that watch these videos want to be in the remnant. You want to be that over and above and servant of God that honors God in all you do. Now, I want to jump back now and talk about Elijah for a minute. I'm going to refer to 1 Kings 18, 41 through 46. 1 Kings 18, 41 through 46. This is an incredible story. Elijah is praying. Now, we just referred to the verse in James where the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much, and it talks about Elijah. Elijah is praying, and this is really, really powerful. It says that Elijah is praying. He's praying for rain after the 3.5 years. And it says there that he is kneeling with his head between his knees. I'm going somewhere with this. It says he's kneeling with his head between his knees. You got to be bowed pretty low to the ground in a humble, humble way to have your head between your knees. You're kneeling down and you got your head down between your knees. That's deep reverence. That's deep humility. He was bowing with his head between his knees. Now, I got to stop there. I don't know if you've seen the previous video entitled Disfigured. Wow. But I talked about spiritual pride and the danger of spiritual pride, and how that we want to be used of God, and we seek to be used of God, and we put ourselves out there, and we aren't bashful about telling him, I want to be in the remnant, and all you have to do is want to be. That's the qualification. And step up and say, Lord, take me. And he wants you. He's seeking such. He told the woman at the well, I'm looking for true worshipers. You know all the verses to that chorus, because I talk about it so very, very much. But it's interesting here. Often when we're used of God, spiritual pride comes in. And I warned against that. And I would encourage you to go back and watch that last video, because I think it's really needed, even though it's some heavy stuff. Elijah has just defeated, if you read in the chapters before, he has just defeated miraculously 450 prophets of Baal and killed them all. Are you listening? You talk about a triumph. And you need to go back and read that. That's just beautiful there. And go back. I'm quoting this kneeling with his head between his knees, 1 Kings 18. But read that whole chapter. Go back and read before that. There's some awesome things in 1 Kings there. He has just come off of the challenge to the prophets of Baal, 450 to 1. And God showed up. I'm not going to the story, it's tempting. But God showed up. Remember, they made the sacrifice, and they were to call on their God and see which God answered. See which one answered. That would be proof of who's the real one. Wow, what a challenge. And the 450 prophets of Baal danced around and cut themselves and screamed and prayed to their God all day. And Elijah even taunted them. Oh, that was brave. That was brave, 450 to 1. And after they were done with their circus, he knelt down and asked God to show his power and to show who he was. And fire came down and consumed the sacrifice. And it says the fire even licked the water all up out of the trench. Now, water was hard to get because this was a drought for 3.5 years. And he had them soak the sacrifice, and there was water laying in the trench around it. That's in itself has some powerful truths in it. This is a great story. You need to go back and read it. But when he quietly knelt, not screaming and yelling, not dancing around, cutting himself with stone like they were doing, trying to get their God to respond, which didn't exist. When he knelt down, God answered with fire and consumed the sacrifice. It says the fire licked up all the water. He had just, listen, he had just come off of that. Oh my, like I said in the last video, we'd be suggesting that we be nominated for the head of our religious organization. We get the video cameras. Let me tell that story. Boy, this'll have a lot of views. This'll sell. We find him kneeling so low to the ground with his head between his knees. I am just taken back. That was his reaction to being used of God at that level. Are you listening? That was his reaction to being used of God at that level. Can God trust me? Can God trust me that if he uses me powerfully, I'll still bow and put my head between my knees in humility and be honored that I was used? Or do I have to crow about it? Do I have to tell everybody? And do I have to pop off? And do I have to advertise it? And do I have to start my own organization and hang my name on the front? And there's a time for God to give you notoriety. And I believe there's sports people that God put them in a place of fame so they could testify. So I don't want that to be misunderstood. But I'm talking about a bigger issue here, Remnant. I'm talking about a hard issue. We need to be used of God. We need to be able to powerfully pray for our kids. We need to be able to powerfully pray for our grandkids. I said to my granddaughter, if you can be a Christian through high school, you can make it through anything. We need to be able to powerfully pray. But to do that, we got to keep a humble spirit. To do that, we got to keep a humble spirit. And I am amazed that after a victory of this level, that Elijah is kneeling with his head between his knees. Isn't that amazing? All right, I'm not done. So what's the key? I got 3 points here. What's the key? James 5:16. The prayer of a righteous man or woman is powerful and effective. What's the first key? Humility. Keeping that humble spirit. Keeping that spiritual pride out. And staying humble before God. How do you respond when God gives you a big victory? How do you respond? I said in the last video, Jesus would heal somebody and say, don't tell anybody. Isn't that something? That's amazing to me. Okay, humility. All right, so he's praying for rain. This is cool. He's praying for rain. All right. He sends his servant and he said, go look and see if you see any clouds. He's praying. He's got his head down between his knees, and it says the effectual earnest prayer, so I would assume he's praying earnestly. Now, he's just had this answer, powerful answer, but it hasn't rained for 3.5 years, and he is praying for rain, and he sends his servant and said, go see if you see any storm clouds. I'll just ad lib here a little bit. But that's the story. It's 1 Kings 18, 41 through 46. Go see if you see any storm clouds. So the servant goes, comes back, nope, no clouds. Sorry. Sorry, pal. I'd like to tell you there is, but there isn't. So he sends him back again. Go again. He goes again, he comes back. Nope. You sure? Nope. 7 times he sends him. 7 times. And I don't know all the reasons. I'll take a slight exit ramp. I don't know all the reasons. But he sends him 7 times. I know 7 we say is the perfect number. I know that 7 often shows up in the Bible. I know that Naaman had to go down into the water, Jordan, the dirty Jordan, 7 times. So I don't know all that. That's interesting study and interesting to think about. And a lot of times I'll just tell you, when I've got something I'm just so burdened about, I'm just in tears, I'll say, Lord, I know you hear me the first time, but I'm going to say this 7 perfect times because that's the perfect number. So I think 7 is significant in ways. But he sent him back the 3rd time, the 4th time, the 5th time, the 6th time. He sends him back the 7th time. He's got his head down between his knees. Why didn't he go look himself? I don't know. He sent his servant. I don't know why he did it that way. God just does things different ways and different times. I'm amazed at all the different ways Jesus healed people just to show us. Don't put him in a box. That prayer he had prayed there at Mount Carmel with the 450 prophets of Baal, he just bowed down. And from what I see in the text, it looks like he just prayed a simple prayer and maybe said it once. And fire came down from heaven. But he keeps praying for rain. And he says, go back again. And the 7th time, are you listening? The 7th time, the servant came back and said, I see a cloud the size of a man's hand. Now that's not very big in the whole sky. I see a cloud the size of a man's hand. Okay, I got to stop here. Remnant, what's the points God gave me early this morning for us? All of us, me too. Humility, head between his knees, face to the ground praying. Number 2, persistence. Persistence. I don't totally understand the whole spiritual realm and why you got to break through certain things. Pardon the traffic and the train. I don't know, but I know there's something to this praying through and breaking down strongholds. Sometimes there's a stronghold with your child's drug addiction. Sometimes there's a stronghold in your spouse's life because of childhood abuse. And persistence in prayer. I don't understand it all, but I know when I was on Praise Mountain in 2011, I've told you this story before, I had fasted and prayed Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. On Thursday, God said to me as clear as anything, you've broken through. Ask anything today, and I'll do it. And I've told you that marvelous answer and how careful I was at what I asked. I didn't want to goof up that request and ask for something stupid. And I don't understand all this of pulling down strongholds and all that goes on in the spiritual realm, but I know Ephesians 6, we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And if there's ever a day when things are darkening, boy, can you see it? Oh, isn't this governmental election thing an absolute scream? We have lost so much. It's, where do you find someone truly honest? Where do you find? Now, I'll not go there right now, but it saddens your heart to see what's happening. You got to keep your eye on the prize, remnant. You got to keep your eye on the pearl of great prize. This story has a happy ending. I read the end of Revelation. It says, behold, I come quickly. And Jesus is coming back. But my, oh my, if the signs of his coming aren't around, and these are dark and difficult days, and these are days when the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. The prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. Listen, humility. That's a key. Don't let spiritual pride in. Humility. Ask God to humble you if you need to. I do all the time. I say, Lord, humble me if I need it. I don't like to be embarrassed, but humble me if I need it. And he will sometimes. I had a Sunday, I just didn't like how I was feeling. I just felt like I kind of had a prideful attitude. And I said under my breath, Lord, take this away. Take this away. And I've prayed many times, humble me if I need it. I couldn't play the guitar, save my life. I played the guitar. I played the guitar since I was about 7 years old. I could not play the guitar that Sunday to save my life. I couldn't make my hand hit a C chord. I'd made a mess of everything. And I laughed at myself afterwards, and I thought, well, I must have needed that. And that's on the lighter side. But on the serious side, do seek a humble heart. After that tremendous victory, this man's got his head between his knees and his face down. But 7 times he sends the servant, and the 7th time he says, there's a cloud way over there. It's just, I'll ad lib there. It's not very big, about the size of a man's hand. And Elijah said, prepare for rain. Prepare for rain. Isn't that something? So persistence. Stay persistent. The persistent widow. Read that. You can look in your concordance. I can't tell you right now that chapter, but I know that story well. Daddy used to preach on it over and over. The persistent widow that just kept coming to the unjust judge. Remember? Nothing worse than an unjust judge. You want a just judge that's for justice. But she had so many disadvantages, she didn't even have a fair judge. But because of her persistence, the judge gave in, and Jesus gave that example. The righteous Father, how much more will he hear you? We know that continual prayer matters because he said to Cornelius in Acts, your prayers have been built up. They've accumulated. They've come up. I'm paraphrasing a tad, but that's the meaning. They've built up as a monument to me. I see it. I see it. I see it. You have stacked them up, brother, and I see them. Persistence. So humility and persistence. Go check again. Go check again. Go check again. Go check again. Is your son gaining any ground? Go check again. Go check again. Meet with him again. Tell him you love him again. Put a note on his car. I used to do that with my one son that struggled so much. I'd go to places where I'd find his car that I didn't like very well, and I would put a post-it note on under the windshield wiper. I love you. I'm praying for you. Persistence. Persistence. Are you listening? All right. Then he says, get ready for rain. And it rained. Man, did it rain. If you read that passage, the storm clouds gathered and it rained, and Elijah was so energized, he ran for miles. Read that story in 1 Kings 18. I got to shut down here, but he got so energized, he ran for miles. The joy of the Lord, your strength. And if you come to God with humility, persistence, and the third one, faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. We must believe he's a rewarder of them that diligently, persistence, diligently, effectual prayers, diligently seek him. Are you listening, remnant? So is it about being perfect, or man, I never miss church and I've been a Sunday school? No, 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 no. Come to God with humility. A man who had had that powerful encounter and seen 450 prophets of Baal destroyed kneels down after that and puts his head between his knees, and he's persistent. Keep checking, keep checking. Do you see anything? Seventh time, I see a hand. Get ready for rain, faith. Oh, that spark of faith. Get ready for rain. You know, what if he just said, well, you sure you weren't seeing a reflection? You sure it wasn't the sun shining off your goggles? When he heard there was a tiny hand in the atmosphere there on the edge, he said, get ready for rain. And boy, did it storm, and it energized him. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And a lot of our stress and being drained is our lack of connection with the Lord, because when we see him begin to work, it ignites us. When we see him begin to work, it ignites us. All right, I need to quit. That's an amazing topic. Remnant, humility, persistence, and faith in our prayers. He didn't make this difficult. It's just hard for us to engage and put it into practice, because the devil knows if we put it into practice, it'll work, and it will bring joy, and it'll give us energy, and we'll be able to run for miles. And so he tries to stop you. Mom used to say the devil will fight you hardest on your time with God. That's where he'll fight you the hardest. Go back and read that. It's an awesome story.